Okay, so Purdue takes it over North Carolina, 93-84, the final here in, where is it? Mohegan Sun, Uncasville, Connecticut, whatever the case may be. Um, so much to say about this one. It was an exciting game the entire way. It was stressful as a Purdue fan, of course, right? I think we were all pretty stressed there throughout the game. There's so many places to start. Let's just kind of go through the game in case anybody missed it. Purdue got off to a pretty good start behind Stefanovic. He was shooting the ball well. He had, I think, 11 of their first 15 points or something like that at the start. And then, they slowed down. UNC kind of caught back up. It became a game that really, at a certain point, the refs kind of decided to take over. And it was, I would say, both ways. I definitely felt that the way that they were calling the game created an advantage for North Carolina, not that North Carolina was in the game because of the refs, more so that they were calling the game where they were whistling every ticky-tack foul, and Purdue got plenty of calls in their favor, but what happened was they were calling all these ticky-tack fouls on our bigs. Our bigs got kind of taken out of the game there for a while, at least Edey for sure, and then Williams ended up coming back in and kind of dominating. So weird game, fun game, really high-level basketball for November between these two teams. North Carolina coming in despite they had two close calls with Brown and with College of Charleston, and I'd watched both of those games, and despite those close calls, I kind of thought, I had a hunch that this would be a close game, that Purdue would get tested by UNC, because UNC can really score the ball. They have a ton of dudes who can score the ball, and they did that for the most part. Even somebody who hadn't really done that, which was Dawson Garcia, he came in and he scored the basketball. He had 26 points. So it was, but then of course Armando Bacot, who's North Carolina's leading scorer, second leading scorer at 18 points a game, only scored 2. They kind of took him out of the game. So UNC played like kind of what I thought they would, but they also didn't defend, and we knew they wouldn't defend. Purdue scored 93 points. That's their 4th straight time going over 90 this year, and this offense just continues to fire on all cylinders, with all the experience that came back, the continuity, the skill above all else, right? 10 of 23 from the three-point line. Stefanovic was just unbelievable. He was the leading scorer with 23. Ivey 22, Williams 20, Edey just 9. But his presence opens things up for others. So, look, I thought Purdue played a great game. I thought Purdue was tested. They had to finish. There was a point there where UNC did take the lead. So they had to really dig deep for this one, and I thought they did. I thought they did that. It's a weird one to analyze because it was so frustrating that when we would go on a run, a couple defensive stops that we didn't get, then all of a sudden they're back into it. All of that stuff did happen, and it was frustrating. But they finished, and they found a way to win this game, which is a credit to Painter and the players. They hung in there. They finished. They should have won this game. They're the better team. They're the more in sync team between the two. They have been so far, right? Because both have played decent mid-majors. Brown's a decent mid-major. Wright State's a decent mid-major. Purdue was dominant. North Carolina was shaky, right? But Purdue won this game off of the play of Ivey, and we have to talk about Ivey. Just dominant at stretches, frustrating at others. The full Jaden Ivey experience in this game was on full display. On one end, he's gonna screw up a switch and let Garcia, who'd made a bunch of threes, get a wide open pick and pop 3. on the other, he's going to score, an unbelievable basket. And so it's the Jaden Ivey experience in a nutshell. But, he goes on these runs that very few players in the country can match, if any, right? These unbelievable 3 or 4 consecutive possessions in a row where he has the big one where he drives down, hits Stefanovic with an unbelievable cross-court pass, 3, we're up 3. Next possession, drives down, cross-court pass to Thompson, 3, puts us up 6. Next possession, a ridiculously tough and 1, puts us up 9. Like, those are the things where you just can't. He's just so good. He's so good at those, and he carried. At certain points, he really did carry the game for Purdue. I thought he was excellent in the second half, just doing what he does best. Right, you're not trying to force up threes. Just get downhill, get to the basket, make plays for others. That's his game, and he did that for the most part. And when he didn't, it didn't look great. He was out of control at times, missed a couple threes. All the stuff that we get frustrated with Ivey with, he absolutely did, and he'll continue to do that. But, man, was he just dominant at stretches and really, I think, won Purdue the game in some respects. The other guy who won Purdue the game was Trevion Williams in the second half. And we can talk about Stefanovic, who did lead the team in scoring. And was instrumental in keeping them alive in the first half. But, man, Trevion Williams came in and took the game over. They couldn't guard him on the block. Garcia tried, Manick tried, Bacot tried. Bacot probably had the most success, but then he fouled out. And Williams just, with his methodical way of playing basketball, won him the game. I think he really did. He ended up with 20 points. It was an impressive 20 points, and the guy really just did a fantastic job this whole game for Purdue, but especially in the second half when he comes in and starts dominating on the low block. Trevion, we forget, right, that this guy is an All-American, but he's unbelievable. I mean, just to be able to go to him off the bench in situations like the one Purdue found itself in today is a luxury that I think maybe only Purdue has. They are unbelievable. They have too much offensive firepower for just about everyone. Carolina especially, a team that doesn't guard really hardly at all. But it's going to be like this all year. I mean, we need to get used to this because Purdue has a certain floor with their offensive firepower where they're just not going to get blown out unless they really take the night off. And I wouldn't think that would happen, right? You just don't see that happening for Purdue this season. They're too talented. It's just a talent thing at the end of the day. First was huge. First comes in, hits 2 monster pick and pop threes, which is just an unbelievable skill that he has. He did get 5 rebounds. He was in the mix for others. Looking at Ivey's stat line, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, the 22 points. I mean, he was sensational. Stefanovic in the first half, just all the different creative ways that Coach Painter uses Sasha Stefanovic. It's going to be tough when he moves on to play professionally overseas or whatever it becomes for Sasha, because he was the best player on the floor in the first half for both teams. He was unbelievable in that first half, and it really felt to me like Painter couldn't take him off the floor. I think he kind of wanted to get him a breather at times, but he just couldn't take the guy off the floor. I mean, he was so good in that first half. And it's not just threes, which he did hit a ton of threes, but it's just the entry passes, the defense, which is extremely underrated. I mean, Stefanovic is right now, until tomorrow when Mason Gillis comes back, he's their backup forward defensively. I know Morton is, and Morton did play it tonight for the most part because of the length of UNC, but just the versatility of Stefanovic, hitting threes. He got downhill, got to the line today. I mean, he had 8 assists. I mean, the guy is just 23 points, 8 assists. I do this thing on my newsletter where I pick the 3 top stars of the game, and it's easy to decide who the 3 are today. It's Williams, Ivey, and Stefanovic, but the order of that, I have no idea where I'm going to go with that because all 3 were so instrumental at different points in the game. You know, the first half was when Stefanovic, we needed him. We needed him to shoot us back into the game or to keep our lead with his shooting. He did so. Then the second half, Ivey begins to kind of take over. And when it gets tied, and Williams in the early part of the second half kept us alive. Right when we get tied, Ivey is the one who puts us over the top with that little run that he had. So it was just a balanced effort. I thought, it was much more of a Williams game than Purdue or than Edey game, right? Like when you look at Carolina's bigs, they're tall, they're kind of long. I mean, Garcia's 6'11", Bacot's 6'10", Manic's 6'9", so they can deal with Edey. I mean, they were able to push Edey off his spot in a way that I don't know if I've seen before. Edey had 4 turnovers, just 9 points. He was struggling. I mean, he and then the times he did get inside position, the rest would just call a foul. So he struggled to get in a rhythm. And then when Travion came in and goes 8 for 10 from the field with 20 points, they couldn't handle him because of that low center of gravity. So it's not only the skill of Edey and Williams, it's the difference in their styles, where you can get a game like this where Carolina's got all these long, skinny bigs and Williams can dominate, and then you'll get in a game like tomorrow against Villanova, and I've done a little bit of scouting on them, where they've got a big named Eric Dixon, who's kind of an undersized, bigger, heftier guy down there, who probably would be able to hold off Williams, but simply can't do anything with Edey because of his size, right? So that mix and match, not only their talent level, but just the difference in styles, the difference in skill. It's just, I don't know if I've seen anything like it at the college level in terms of depth. I mean, that position, it's just unbelievable. It really is. I talked about first, I thought Hunter played a really nice game. They needed him defensively. I thought they might before the game. I thought he might get more run than Thompson just because of the defensive matchup against Caleb Love, who has some length to him. But yeah, Hunter came in, played really good defense, I thought. I'll have to go back and watch, but I thought it was really solid. And then he was aggressive offensively. There was a play where he couldn't get the entry pass into Travion. There was so much attention being paid on, maybe it was Travion or Edey, I can't even remember. So he just ripped through, drove, and got a layup. Got to the line a couple other times, hit 2 of 4 from the line. So, with Hunter, it's like, dude, be aggressive. You can score. I mean, you scored 2 years ago, you averaged double digits for the whole season. So, obviously that part of his game's kind of been lost, but man, he can really get to the basket. He's athletic and he's long, but he doesn't do that. So I thought that was good for Hunter's confidence. On the negative side, and I'm not going to try to kill any of our guys, but Newman really struggled in this game. Just seemed like the moment might be a little too big for him. It was loud, and it was a Carolina crowd. It's a big early season event, and I don't know. He was bad defensively. He only attempted 1 field goal offensively. This was a game where we needed consistency defensively. And hardly anyone brought it, but those that did got to play. And Sasha, from a mental processing standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, and I'm not talking athleticism. Athleticism doesn't equal defense, right? Defense is about so much more. And Sasha was just miles better than Newman. I'm seeing a comment here from Benjamin Miller. Thoughts on how we played defensively, especially when they stretched the floor and drew out our big man. Look, I thought it was okay. There's going to be a ton of teaching moments, I think. I think with this team, particularly with Ivey and Newman, you're going to get a lot of kind of what are you thinking moments, right? Like, I think about the botched switch where Ivy it was supposed to be, it was first in Ivy on, I think it was Garcia. This is after he'd hit a bunch of threes, right? And it's just a basic switch, but Ivy just stays with him, and then he's late to the closeout on Garcia. And it's plays like that with Ivy where you go, what are you thinking there? But I do think he gets caught up in the moment. Same thing with Newman, where they get kind of caught up in it, and then there's, oh, whoa, and then there's your man, and you got an open three. And in college basketball, that's all it takes. But overall, I thought the defense was okay. It was a fast-paced game. Carolina certainly beat themselves quite a bit. I think they had 11 turnovers in the first half. They settled down, only had 3 in the second half. I thought it was good. It was hard to judge with the fouls, right? I mean, gosh, the fouls were just difficult to get in a rhythm for the game. Travion's fourth, where he's fouling the guy 30 feet from the basket. Obviously, you can't have that. But overall, I thought it was fine. I think it's along the same lines of what we've had the whole year, which is not great defense, unbelievable offense, where you can kind of make up for it. I thought they left shooters open too many times. I think you're right on the pick and pop. But it's a bad matchup for Purdue, right? Everybody's got to realize that. This is a really bad matchup for Purdue because they've got Manick and Garcia who can stretch the floor. And tomorrow with Villanova, I can't decide. I've been thinking about it since Villanova won this morning, whether or not it's a good matchup, because Villanova is a team with a bunch of small bigs, really forwards. I shouldn't even say bigs. They don't even have a true center. It's this Dixon guy who I was talking about earlier, who's about 6'5", kind of big dude. Are they going to be able to just space us to death and kill us by 3? Maybe. Or are we going to be able to impose our will on the interior? I have no idea. I'm really excited to find out. It's a fascinating clash of styles. This game, you've got Bacot down low, but he didn't really do anything. 2 points, 1 for 6, 5 rebounds. And then you had Manick and Garcia, who really were able to stretch the floor, Garcia in particular. And then the other thing, Benjamin and anybody else, they just have better guards than we do, Carolina, top to bottom. Now, we have the great equalizer with Jaden Ivey. But offensively, Davis and Love, 2 former 5-stars who had 18 points apiece, can just do things that I don't think many of our guys can. Thompson can't, Hunter can't, Sasha can't. They can get downhill, and they can create their own shot. When you think about Purdue's roster, it's a lot of guys who are really, really good at either shooting 2s or shooting 3s, right? Like, Ivy's really good at getting to the hill. He's not that good at shooting 3s. Sasha's great at shooting 3s, not that great at getting downhill. Same with our bigs. First can kind of do a little bit of both, but it's not like he's creating his own shot. Thompson's strictly 3s, Hunter strictly 2s, Newman strictly 3s, Morton strictly 2s. So it's a weird roster in that we don't have many guys. Like, who on this team, other than maybe Ivy at times, can you trust to hit a step-back 3 like R.J. Davis was doing tonight or Caleb Love was doing tonight? And so that's why I think you see that talent gap come in. And there is a talent gap between Carolina and Purdue. It's just Purdue seems to be much more well-coached and has developed its players much better. Really fun game from top to bottom, just a lot of scoring. I thought really high-level basketball, despite all the turnovers, despite all the fouls. And Purdue was only at 9 turnovers, but Carolina in particular was sloppy with the ball in the first half. But I really enjoyed watching this one, and I just think you can't say enough about Ivy. He took over in that second half, and he lacks consistency over the course of a full game, but we always talk about it's a game of runs. Well, he's sort of a player of runs, right? Like, long stretches where he does nothing. The mini runs where he gets hot and starts firing on all cylinders are just special and are enough to probably win Purdue very, very many games just like this one. He had one stretch in the first half, one stretch in the second half where he was dominant, and it was enough to put Purdue over the top, which is just kind of crazy. But that's the kind of talent he has. Excuse me. He shined brightest on a floor with Davis, Love, like I just talked about, all these talented guards for Carolina. It was clear that when Ivy was in his zone, and that doesn't happen often, or it hasn't this season so far, it's just a different level than what those guys can do. And I think that's what's so impressive about Jaden Ivey this year, and it's why he's a coveted NBA prospect. If anybody else has any questions about this game, I was gonna, feel free to drop them in the chat. I was gonna kind of look ahead to the North Carolina or to the Villanova game tomorrow. I watched the game earlier today between Nova and Tennessee. Thought it was a good game. Not a close game, but a good performance, I should say, by Nova. Tennessee looked a little bit out of their element. Nova kind of just imposed their will as the game went on. And I can't decide whether I think Purdue has the advantage or Villanova in this matchup. It's two top 6 teams, although if you look at places like Ken Pom and Bart Torvik and the advanced sites, you would say it's two top 5 teams because Purdue's ranked higher by those advanced sites. Nova, obviously, everybody probably knows about Colin Gillespie, just a tough, hard-nosed point guard. Has been in college forever, has a ton of experience, really good three-point shooter, really smart with the ball. And then they've got just a host of other really talented, forward wing types who are also pretty strong. And they really showed that today against Tennessee, just kind of their versatility. They like to go 8 deep, really 7 deep, but pretty much 8 deep as this thing just starts to play here. Sorry about that. But, so it's Justin Moore, it's Jermaine Samuels, it's Brandon Slater, and those are kind of the 3 tweener forwards who can rebound, they can defend, they can switch. Villanova likes to switch everything. Now the question will be against Purdue, are they going to be able to do that with Edey on the floor, with First on the floor? Even First is taller than their tallest guy. But they'll shoot the heck out of the ball, even though they only went 8 for 24 today and still beat Tennessee, a good Tennessee team, by 20. They really, really defend. Purdue's going to have to probably make some tough shots that they've been capable of making this season, but of course that could go away on any given night, right? Having Gillis back will be nice. I don't know how much they'll play him tomorrow, but he is sort of in the same mold of some of their guys, like a Dixon or a Slater, who are these kind of, 6'6", 6'7", but they're bigs, but they can also shoot. Villanova's guys have a little more offensive ability than Mason, but still should be a really interesting matchup. Nova is just a well-oiled machine. They can have days like today. They go 25 of 67 from the field, 8 of 24 from 3. They beat a good Tennessee team by 20 points. So that kind of speaks to everybody knows it, but they're a great program run by a great coach, and it's going to be an awesome matchup. Obviously, Nova was able to kind of coast to their victory because they were up by 20 at halftime. Purdue had to really work for theirs. I don't know if that'll factor into it at all. Benjamin, I don't think Gillis will start tomorrow. I would be very surprised if that were the case. I think it will be Caleb First. He has earned that right, in my opinion. I also think that Gillis, for as much as I like him in this matchup, and I would have liked him a lot against Carolina, there's no way Painter's going to feel comfortable, playing him a ton right away, given that it's kind of in the middle, just one day. You had no time to really work him in. I know he's been in practice, but I still think that's a situation where he'll come off the bench, he'll get some run at some point. If he looks good, maybe he gets to stay in. If not, Morton, Stefanovic, etc. But Mason Gillis is going to bring a lot to this team. The return of Mason Gillis, really, and I know I'm not saying people aren't talking about it, they certainly are. But it's very important. In a game like today where your 2 bigs get into foul trouble, having that guy who can wall up on a big like Manick or Garcia but also stay with him on the perimeter, it's just invaluable. And it's why I thought he would reclaim that starting job when he got back. Now I think differently, and that's because of the play of Caleb First. The guy has just been rock solid. He can shoot the ball when he's open. People are leaving him open. That'll probably change soon, but that'll only open up the offense, right? As soon as they start committing that defender to first because he's hitting that pick and pop three, there's some space for Ivy to get downhill and get to the rim. Just really interested to see the Nova-Purdue matchup because it is another contrast of styles, and we will see contrast of styles until Purdue gets into Big Ten play, and that's because the Big Ten, they all have very similar styles, and the rest of the country spreads you out scores, as we know very well. Shout out North Texas on that one. They showed us, kind of how the rest of the country likes to play. Thankfully, it's a new season. This team's a lot better than last year's team. I'm really excited to see what this team can do, not only against Villanova, but of course also against Florida State in a couple weeks, and then NC State, Butler. These are some fun non-conference matchups. Of course, none of these teams are helping us out. Florida State losing to Florida, and then a close win over Tulane. They don't look good. Butler blown out by Michigan State. Close win over IUPUI. Yikes. And then NC State just lost their best player, Manny Bates, for the season. So, tomorrow would be a huge win. When you think about the context of non-conference and future seeding, right? Like, if we don't beat Villanova, then maybe the best win is North Carolina in the non-conference, and all of a sudden maybe we're a 2 or 3 seed instead of a 1 seed, right? So all these things have repercussions. Now, if we beat Nova, I would find it hard to believe that we would lose again this non-conference season. Knock on wood, of course. But Florida State, we get at Mackey. Butler's not good. NC State's not good. All the other teams are bye games. So it's a really big game tomorrow. Get excited. 1 o'clock on ABC, I think. So today they felt like putting us on ESPN News. But tomorrow, apparently, we've now become worthy of the big channel, ABC. So that will be an unbelievable game. If anyone watching, I do have a few viewers here, unlike last time. Feel free to put questions in the chat like Benjamin did. I'm willing to hang around here and answer all of those. I've kind of touched on this game in full, I feel like, and some of the other storylines. We could talk about the refs. Just it wasn't all the refs' fault, but it was really frustrating during that point in the game where it was just seemingly a foul called on every single play, and I felt like just the way they were calling it was not helpful to Purdue's style, which is, of course, to pound it inside. They were calling every ticky-tack foul inside, so that was frustrating for sure. But really did enjoy this win. I think it's a great win for Purdue, as I've said, and it's one, as we continue to talk about, or as I drone on, about the importance of seeding in March. This is a win that I think will age well, right? Like, they're 18th now, not ranked very highly in the Ken Pom and all that. They're gonna get better, and as you can see, they've got a lot of offensive talent that is just gonna get better and better. So I think UNC, this win will age very well. Benjamin's saying definitely not Big Ten refs. That's true. Big Ten refs, when we get into that play, that's going to be a lot more fun for Purdue, I think, because you're going to get your Kofis, your Hunter Dickinsons, some of these dudes who can really actually match up with Edey and Williams today, like Baycott. Man, that dude, and he's 6'10", 245, but he looks small compared to Edey. He looks small compared to Williams. So that dude is not a Big Ten big. He's an ACC big, and there's a lot of difference between that. So that was fun to watch, and I think Purdue will benefit from the Big Ten refs, which sounds crazy because Big Ten refs are sort of the Bo Borowski. They're known for being kind of bad, but nonetheless a really good win. I think, geez, Travion played 13 minutes, scored 20 points. It's unbelievable. Is that right? That might not be right, but it's just speaks to the power of depth and then top-end talent. Unbelievable depth. We were able to rotate guys in, and other than Newman, they looked very, very good, particularly Williams. And then star talent with Jaden Ivey, which is something that Purdue has not had in a very, very long time, and that includes Carson Edwards, because what we're looking at is what is your upside? And if you're in the NBA, in a large part determines that, right? Like, what is Jaden Ivey's upside? It's a top 10 pick. That's where he's projected to go. the rare times when he can tap into that as a 19-year-old kid or 20 or however old he is, it's going to be special, and it's going to be something Purdue hasn't seen, and it's going to be something that other teams aren't going to be able to deal with. Now, can he tap into that more and more as the season goes along for more consistent periods of time? Hopefully, maybe not, but maybe this version is good enough. So that I think kind of sums up this game. I will be live immediately following tomorrow's game against Villanova, once again on the Boiler Basketball Breakdown YouTube channel. I had a good amount of viewers this time around, at least better than last time. Those who did stick around, tell a friend. Let's get as many people in here. I'll answer this question from Benjamin Miller, who's been very loyal in the chat there. Feels like you and I, Ben, are just having our own conversation here. How did you like the last 6 minutes of the first half where Edey and Williams were on the bench? That is a great point that I forgot to mention. That was an unbelievable stretch by Purdue. First playing the 5, Morton playing the 4. UNC was hunting that Morton matchup. They were trying to get it into the post against Morton. Morton did an admirable job. I think he got whistled for a few fouls, maybe got scored on once or twice. First was coming over to block everything. I think more than anything, Ben, that's a look at the future, right? I mean, if Edey goes pro, we don't know. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will. Even if he does, and even if he comes back to Purdue, there's going to be lineups where First is at the 5, and you just see how poised that dude is, how under control he is offensively, how just smart he is defensively. I love Caleb First. I love everything we've seen from Caleb First. He was unbelievable during that stretch, really kept Purdue alive, and that was another stretch where Ivy hit the 2 consecutive threes to stretch the lead to 10, and then they kind of hung around. They did tie those minutes, I think 17-17 I saw on Twitter. So that was huge in the game where, look, we're 4 games in. Oh my God, we just had our 2 bigs get 2 fouls. How are you going to respond? Is Carolina going to run away with it? No, they're not. We're going to settle in. We've got really, really good players that aren't named Zach Edey and Travion Williams, and we're going to play it even with a really good North Carolina team. So I was super impressed by those minutes, Ben, and I appreciate your questions so far here. Like I said, if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend, have them come to the next one. I'm just trying to grow the audience here, and I just think this would be a cool place for everybody to hang out after games. So really enjoy doing these, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. Check out the Boiler Basketball Breakdown Substack, which is where all my writing is. There will be a newsletter out tomorrow morning breaking down this game and probably scouting a little bit of Villanova. I'm going to get into their game against Tennessee. I'll probably watch that right after this and kind of start to take some notes on that game and see what they're doing. But should be a great game tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Again, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Come to these live streams. Tell a friend. Really appreciate it. So thanks, and Boiler up.